glad we have a fantastic partnership between all of us. As you can see here, Women in AI, Miss AI, Humanize, my companies, as well as we are developers. So this is a lived example of how a strong, diverse partnership could work. And today, in talking with Viktoria and Tina and Mireya, what would be interesting for the audience, I thought we are bringing you 3 topics. One is I will briefly walk you through my path in high tech and AI. Not that I find myself a role model, because I don't really think about myself in those terms. I'm just a humble person here, I would say, who just loves talking. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. And secondly, I wanted to connect our conversation here into what concerns all of us right now, which is a global medical crisis. And I thought we are connecting these topics. AI is going to impact so many different ways. So topic number 2 will be a little bit about the biggest moments in human history. So we know how it's coming from with the high-tech sector. And the third one, I just published recently my humble top 10 predictions, which I call them counterintuitive predictions for the post-corona time, and how artificial intelligence plays a role there. Before getting started, I want you just to have a look at this red text on this slide, because that is why I actually left the big corporate world and a fantastic career and an amazing life over there, because I thought this is time for me to give back, and in articulating why I founded Miss AI as well as Humanize, which are brands and a series of ventures that I incorporate under Nemes Ventures. We are here to drive AI leadership, to make Europe a leader in AI worldwide. Many of you know that we are not yet a leader, but we have a lot of positive elements to get there. And so our vision and mission in my community is that we want to reach 10 million women, which makes 20 million humans, because we are about 51% of the population in Europe is actually female. And we want to reach them and enable them with what artificial intelligence means, how they can use it for their life in terms of education, but also with strong partnerships like this, as well as supporting ideas around business models and all that stuff. And we want to do that by 2023, which is a very ambitious goal. And we can only do it if we do it together, jointly. And I think one of the elements of the post-corona crisis is that it's bringing people closer together, particularly in co-creating and collaborating in various areas of life. If you could advance the slide, Viktoria. Thank you. So just a few stations in my life, because Viktoria was asking me to talk a little bit about how I got from studying international business administration with a focus on marketing and sales into really running these big businesses. So, I spent the last 20 years working for Microsoft and Google in various capacities. And so I started in the early days of what we used to call embedded systems. I landed in high tech more or less by coincidence and by good luck, to be honest. Like many people, I had all sorts of dreams in my teenager times. One of them even included to become an actress, but then some famous actors tested me and said, no talent, no chance, get out of here. And then I thought, well, what am I doing? What can I do that is both fun and also impactful on my own terms to allow me to have a great career? So for me, it was always about really driving impact in my life and the life of others. And so these 20 years passed really quickly. And what I like to call myself today is that I am a business and digital Darwinist, from Darwin, because I believe that to survive today's increasingly and ever-changing reality is we really need that growth mindset. That means we really need to be honest and consistent and adaptive. These three values drove my life and my career, both professionally and personally. And so those were the stations that allowed me to leave those elements as well. And so I love bringing high-tech products to market. So I'm a product person. I need to have a product. I love to have products that positively enable people's lives. You know, when I studied at Microsoft, the big vision Bill Gates had a computer on every desk, a PC at the time, on every desk, because he wanted to enable everyone in the world to have access to that technology. Later on, Google said, we are making the world's information available to everyone. So you see, there is a common theme here. And ideally for me, it's the combination of hardware and software, combined in devices that are as powerful as what we have today in Google Home, for example, or Alexa by Amazon, and all these other devices, voice assistants that are, for example, using natural language processing, you know, and all these things are being in development for many, many years already. And I've witnessed, for example, and I launched for Microsoft back in the day, products that were way before the iPhone, way before the iPad, and even they had voice recognition at the time, but the time was not right. So there is a lot of that aspect of when you bring the innovation to market. So all big learnings. I do love to create opportunities for people and companies, and I'm always trying to be at the edge of that, and try to be, you know, in the innovative, creative space, and quite a bit of an unexpected, right? And maybe the last point here is, you know, being a connector and communicator helped me along the way, helped me to move from job to job, from country to country, to connect with different people. You know, I worked in the United States and in France and in Italy and in Germany, and I was born in Romania. So all these stations in this life could not be possible without hard work, a lot of hard work, a lot of days waking up at 5 a.m. and not finishing until 11 p.m., right? But if you have the right passion and level of energy, and most importantly, you have to know how to balance that with fun. So for me, it's work, play hard. So work hard and maybe even play harder. So make sure for you guys in your careers, I'm sure you're on different levels in your career, but I don't have to tell how important it is to take that time to enjoy what you have and what you achieved, and how important fun is. So these were my years. Now I do a lot of different projects in AI, from consulting to companies to nonprofits like Miss AI, to conferences and workshops and education elements, and writing a blog, because my key goal here is to connect people across all disciplines. I think in AI, the only way to be successful is to have a very clear opinion what AI means for your particular area. And for me, it means a very clear focus on diversity and inclusion, as we know, and also on skilling, upskilling, reskilling. Those are very important elements for the future, as well as what happens with our data, so privacy, security, and all that. And I tried to distill all these things into a book which I just published, which is called the Proust Questionnaire. It goes back to Marcel Proust, and you may know, maybe you don't, but you can find out that Marcel Proust used to have to fill in a questionnaire about his life and values, and that was all the rage in the 19th century, in the Victorian times, but it's still until today. And I thought, why don't we combine these elements and create a number of questions about AI that I know are relevant to me and are relevant to other people. And so the key point there, it is a very multidisciplinary view. I interviewed people on these questions that are philosophers and ethicists and doctors and business people and coders, people that write chatbots. And it is unbelievably interesting to see all these views and all these visions across everything. It was important for me to have 50% male, 50% female. And it was important to me to have at least 10, but we have 14 countries represented in these 22 experts. So just as a point why I think it's important to have a huge diversity of thought in a space like this that is going to impact every single aspect of our life. And if we'd advance one more slide, how I think that impact will happen was already one back, yeah, thanks, was already identified by a famous author by his name, Ian Morris, who created this chart, basically part of his research in a book that's called The Measure of Civilization, and how social development decides the fate of nations. It appeared in Princeton and Oxford about 7 years ago. And basically what you see here is really the biggest moments in human history. And this index, if you look at it, shows how energy, organization, war-making capacity, as you can see some stations there, and most importantly, information technology, how these elements are driving social development. And he took the time to research how that is different in East versus West. And he looked at it from prehistory, as you can see, to the present days. And he said that in the early Roman Empire, and also up to 1,000 years later in the Song dynasty, that index briefly reached very high levels, not seen again until the 18th century. That's the next time when you can see that spike. And then it plummeted again. And his conclusion was, this suggests that the levels of social development observed during those early peaks and also during the 18th century represented the maximum that could be attained with traditional technology. Right? So as you see, those are some very traditional points in time. And that was very difficult to sustain. You know, using the same type of technology all over, you cannot sustain development over time for humankind and for strong development. And if you don't have breakthroughs like the ones in the 18th century, which led to the industrial revolutions, then the societies will decline. And that's what happened with the Roman Empire and with the Song dynasty. And so Morris suggested in this work that we will face, or we are already facing, a decisive turning point where events that unfold over the next decades, he said decades, he said that 7 or 8 years ago, decades, or perhaps the next century, will determine whether we decline as a society, or whether we achieve another breakthrough. And the possibility that circumstances are different enough from the early Roman Empire and the Song dynasty and what happened in the 18th century in those spikes, that we could drift along at something like these current levels of development, he said that possibility is rather small. Now, connect that into make a few more points and then I'll go to next step, but connect that because this is a very interesting probabilistic approach, is what we call stochastic approach, to thinking about the role of context across geography, climate, epidemiology. That's why I called it today in these times. And all of these that bring us to one possible conclusion, which is that now is the time for artificial intelligence to grow up beyond the rather limited elements we have in place today, such as machine learning. And those of you that are familiar with these topics, you know we are still in early stages, despite the huge projects we have. And my point here is, it is now time for you all, I hope you are very diverse group in this call, but it is time now for not only business and tech and coders and developers and all those people, but also for anthropologists and doctors and sociologists and marketing people and demographers to evaluate this technology in the context of social development and to come up with new ideas and methods to use data for alternative specifications. And I think this is the peak that we have, and Corona is an enabler of that, despite the horrible, horrible impact it has on us as a society, as people, and as economies. So you'll notice I have a rather positive outlook in general over life, but we need to stay realistic. We live in a very, very hard situation right now. We need to take it very, very seriously. But I also am convinced from growing through many, many crises in my life that we will make the best out of it. And in that spirit, please advance one more. In that spirit, I just wanted to walk you very briefly through a few examples. You can find this on my LinkedIn profile. Feel free to connect with me anytime. But I thought last week when I saw how the developments are going, and of course we went through all these phases of denial and all the phases we have when facing crisis, I thought, oh, come on, it's going to be short, it's going to be easy. But you see, we have a lot of victims and we cannot continue like that. So, but last week I thought, what would be some counterintuitive predictions for the time after? I want you guys to focus on the time after. Do what needs to be done now, but focus what's your plan post-corona and how can AI play a significant role in this. I'm not going to read the 10 points, maybe you'll get these slides, but my objectives with this list, I could talk about deep learning and machine learning and visual recognition and what skills you need, but you can read all of that on the web anytime. I thought I'm giving you a different perspective today, just a little glimpse into, I think, in every single one of these 10 plus another zillions elements where AI is opening up huge opportunities. And there is a lot more you can research and get creative. That's my point. Please, and crisis is a huge perpetrator of creativity and innovation. So get creative for your own area of interest and work. Use some of these and see how you can apply. I'm sure there will be amazing ideas emerging out of this crisis. Number one, AI can predict demographic characteristics, just knowing your name. That's my point. As people stay in house, they please make more love. This will be a baby boom year, I'm sure. Of course, it is a very sad year with a lot of victims as well. But I can tell you that AI can use machine learning based on non-invasive technology to get demographic characteristics of audience, just using those names. And that means you can have insights, you can make lists of missing demographic data. There will be a lot of that stuff going on in the next days. One element. Number two, of course, climate informatics. This is a huge area. Climate informatics covers a range of topics from improving prediction of extreme events such as hurricanes or paleoclimatology, or reconstructing past climate conditions using data collected from things like ice cores or climate downscaling, or using large-scale models to predict weather on a hyper-local level. It will be all about hyper-local, multi-insight, deep insight in data. And of course, the socio-economic impacts of that are given in that point. Just one idea. The number three is about AI in healthcare. Clearly, we can use complex algorithms and software to emulate human cognition in the analysis of complicated medical data. So what happens now, of course, you have huge amounts of data. Of course, it's about data quality, data reliability in order to make sense and have good insights. But the primary aim of health-related AI applications is to analyze relationships between prevention or treatment techniques and patient outcomes. And that ability of AI to shift through huge amounts of data can help hospitals to optimize performance, can improve the use of existing resources, can generate time and cost savings. The other area which is very relevant right now is AI for mental health. please do not get bored while you work from home. Viktoria made a good point today on LinkedIn about that. The researchers are developing new drugs and pharmaceutical combinations using machine learning to assess chemical reactions of antidepressants, for example. So there is a lot going on in that area. But as you work from home, don't feel confined. Feel about this being your time to do more, think more, and basically have some activity beyond. Because this time, hopefully, will never come back. Not in this form, but it's actually good, pretty good time to use in reflecting more. Very quickly on number 4, of course, there is a huge opportunity for startups here. I recommend you in our Miss AI community. There is a Forbes contributor by his name, Rob Terves. And Rob is he's a Forbes AI contributor. He's writing amazing articles, and he just came up with an article which we can forward you the link afterwards, so you can read what the difference is between a software developer and all the startup people that can create things that are different for the AI world, and how important it is. And I think you'll like that. Number 5 is really about machine ethics and what we call the machine morality, which is a field of research that is looking at artificial moral agents, right? Robots, artificial intelligence computers that are behaving morally, so through morals. So, and you know, there is a lot of conversation around ethics, and you know, the academics, many governments have challenged this idea that AI can itself be held accountable. I was at a conference last fall, as I worked for MIT, and we were speaking in Toulouse at a conference, and there was a speaker just before me talking about who should that driverless car kill, the old woman or the young child. The Indian things different than the French. That's amazing, but please, please think about it. AI in itself cannot be held accountable. It's the people behind it. Number 6, there is a lot about vaccines that will be created and coming up. Medical researchers are using AI to reduce long drug development times, to prevent failures and all that stuff. I want you to know the first vaccine created by AI alone is a turbocharged version of the flu vaccine. So please be sure that this technology will tackle the coronavirus, and there will be huge learning out of that. And of course, there are downsides and critical steps to take. But I think that is a compound that is being done right now that stimulates creation of new drugs, and they are working very deeply and looking into the human immune system and trying to make it effective in fighting off infection. So for those of you interested more in that, this is called Smart Algorithms for Medical Discovery, or SAM. SAM. I want to also point out that we have a huge shortage of skills. And all these breakthroughs are not possible if we all don't learn and really try to get into these fields and see how it can make, because it will be an amazing area. Everyone can work on something they believe in, something they criticize, something they embrace. But what's important is to be very clear, we don't have enough people, and there is a lot more to be done there to reduce this talent gap and to widen the skills. Very quickly, number 7, I think fundraising is about to change profoundly with AI. And this powerful technology will automate all these tasks around philanthropy funding. So, for example, they write appeals. You know, how do you find new donors? How much should we ask of a donor? All those things will be automated as well. And just in the interest of time, AI is transforming your employee experience. There will be a lot in recruitment, onboarding, you know, but there will also be dark sides to this, as we know, surveillance and other things. Number 9, as of today, Europe is establishing a new plan for AI and data regulations. For those of you that are interested, they are creating a new digital compliance strategy. Are we just 40 minutes on this call?
No, go ahead. Zoom actually allowed more time due to the corona crisis, so there's no limitation anymore in terms of timing.
Oh, super, because I keep looking at the clock here and making sure. Am I going too fast?
No, I think it's fine so far. If someone else has issues, feel free to use the chat to communicate that.
Yeah. Thank you. So briefly, this new plan for Europe on AI and data regulation is to create a digital compliance strategy. They want to unlock access to more high quality data for innovation and also to creating trust at the same time. Look online if you're interested in that area, but there is a lot to do also at Brussels at that level in AI. And there are so many organizations you can join, of course, and make a big difference. And finally, there is a huge point here, which is the last point I have, which I want to leave you with this thought, which is humanity has been marked by religion, of course. And I believe AI, we might want to consider a connection between religion and AI. And especially when we go through tough times like now, what should be the question that we raise? What are religion-related questions that might be raised through these new technologies? What function? Could you guys mute your...
Oops. To everyone, please mute your mics. Thank you so much. There's also, yeah, Lisa's tab. I don't know who Lisa is, but maybe Lisa can also mute her mic. I don't know. Thank you.
Great. So another thought process here is just to show you the diversity you can achieve in this field is what religious functions might AI serve? Now, there are a lot of people thinking about this. You may have heard about the concepts of transhumanism or the concepts of, super intelligence. I think we're so far away from that. But we can ask these questions. What do these popular discourses about AI mean for the religion-related discourse, and what narratives are part of the teleological atheist narrative? There is also a lot of conversation around that. So there is an intersection of AI and religion with issues around the world, such as slavery or human identity, affect and all that stuff. So there will be, I think, a lot of impact on that. But I also want to leave you with one last thought, because one of the people I admire most in our AI field is a gentleman who is writing chatbots. And why couldn't bots and chatbots be taught scripture and the ability to offer religious guidance in or out of the church, the synagogue, the mosque? Because as we near in many, many years from now, but we have to think and just let our human minds wander. If there is any possibility of man-mind super intelligence, then the biggest question for me is whether or not machines can be programmed to know God. So would an autonomous mind, for example, absent of a human body, have a soul? If you read the Proust Questionnaire, there are a few questions about that in there, and you'd be surprised at what all the experts are saying about that. Would religions of the world attempt to convert robots to a certain religion? So you see, the broad spectrum of this is huge, going from the first one all the way to the last one, going from the very realistic and down-to-earth thinking concerns and issues that we will have as part of this technology, but also going all the way to thinking deeply theologically, religiously, or philosophically about these questions. So that's what drives me. This is why I am so excited about all this, is about the sheer opportunities. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And if it was too fast, I'm happy to go deeper in one-to-one or smaller group conversations.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Nancy.